Maharaj, Maharaj Yudhishthir went to the scene of masquerade. There, Bhishma Deva was lying on the bed of arrows about to pass away. Purport. In the ninth chapter, as it is willed by Lord Sri Krishna, Bhishma Deva will impart instructions to King Yudhishthira on the subject of occupational duties. Bhishma Deva will also offer his last prayers to the Lord on the verge of passing away from this mortal world and thus become liberated from the bondage of further material engagements. Bhishma Deva was endowed with the power of leaving his material body at will, and his laying down on the bed of arrows was his own choice. This passing away of the great warrior attracted the attention of all contemporary elites, and all of them assembled there to show their feeling of love, respect, and affection for the great soul. Hare Krishna.
Okay. सदा ते प्रात्र सर्वे सदा स्वै स्वर्णभूषिते अन्वगच्छन् रतेर्विप्र व्यासदौमयाद्यस्तथा. Translation by His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Saraswati Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Translation. At that time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyasa and rishis like Dhaumya, the learned priest of Pandavas and others. Hare Krishna.
3. भगवान् अपि विप्रासे रथेन स धनञ्जय स तैर्व्यरोचत नृप्र कुबेर इव बुध्यते. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Sapan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O sage among the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhishthira appeared very insignificant, like Kuvera surrounded by his companions, the Guhyakas. Purport. Lord Sri Krishna wanted the Pandavas to be present before Bhishma Deva in the most aristocratic order so that he might be pleased to see them happy at the time of his death. Kuvera is the richest of all the demigods, and herein King Yudhishthira appeared like him. Kuvera, for the procession along with Sri Krishna, was quite appropriate to the royalty of King Yudhishthira. Hare Krishna.
9.4. दृष्ट्वा निपतितं भूमौ दिवश्च्युतम् इवामरन् प्रणेमुः पाण्डव भीष्मं सानुगय सह चक्रिणा. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Vanilla Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground, like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Krishna, bowed down before him. Purport. Lord Krishna was also a younger cousin of Maharaja Yudhishthira, as well as the intimate friend of Arjuna. But all the family members of the Pandavas knew Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, although conscious of his supreme position, always behaved in a humanly custom, and so he also bowed down before the dying Bhishma Deva as if he were one of the younger brothers of Yudhishthira. Hare Krishna.
तत्र ब्रह्मर्ष्य सर्वे देवर्ष्यश्च सत्तमा राजर्ष्यश्च तत्रासन् पृष्ठं परत पुंगवम्. Translation purpose by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Sanjay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Just to see the chief of descendants of King Bharata, Bhishma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the rishis amongst the demigods, brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there. Purport. The rishis are those who have attained perfection by spiritual achievements. Such spiritual achievements can be earned by all, whether one is a king or a mendicant. Bhishma Deva himself was also one of the Brahm rishis and the chief of the descendants of King Bharata. All rishis are situated in the quality of goodness. All of them assembled there on hearing the news of the great warrior's impending death. Hare Krishna.
7. पर्वतो नारदो धौम्य भगवान् बादरायण बृहद्वसो भरद्वाज सशिष्यो रेणुकसुत वसिष्ठ प्रमदस् प्रीतो घृतसंवसिता कक्षिवान् गौतमो अत्रिश्च कौशिको अथ सुदर्शन. Translation and purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Yogesh Prabhu. Up
Hare
to first
Krishna.
paragraph.
Translation. All the sages like Parvat Muni, Narada, Dhaumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Vrahadev, Bharadwaj, and Parshuram, and disciples Vashishta, Indra Pramada, Trita, Grat Samda, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present. Purport. Parvat Muni is considered to be one of the oldest sages. He is almost always a constant companion of Narad Muni. They are also spacemen competent to travel in the air without the help of any material vehicle. Parvat Muni is also a Devarshi, or a great sage amongst the demigods like Narada.
Hare Krishna. Oh, we lost. Hare Krishna Sanjay Prabhu, you can continue. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Is from
He was present. You can continue. Think of
like,
sorry.
like the Narada Muni, Parvata Muni also used to visit the royal assembly in the heavens of King Indra. As a Gandharva, sometimes he visited the royal assembly of Kuvera, one of the important demigods. Both Narada and Parvata were once in trouble with the daughter of Maharaja Srinjaya. Maharaja Srinjaya got the benediction of a son by Parvata Muni.
Hare Krishna.
Narada Muni.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Yogesh Prabhu, you can continue.
Yes, Prabhu. Narad Muni is inevitably associated with the narrations of the Puranas. He is described in the Bhagavatam. In his previous life, he was the son of a maidservant, but by good association with pure devotee, he became enlightened in the devotional service, and in the next life, he became a perfect man comparable with himself only. In the Mahabharata, his name is mentioned in many places. He is the principal Devarshi, or the chief sage among the demigods. He is the son and the disciple of Brahmaji, and from him, the disciplinic succession in the line of Brahma has been spread. He initiated Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, and many celebrated devotees of the Lord. He initiated even Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedic literatures, and from Vyasadeva, Madhvacharya was initiated, and thus the Madhva Sampradaya, in which the Gaudiya Sampradaya is also included, has spread all over the universe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu belonged to this Madhva Sampradaya. Therefore, Brahmaji, Narada, Vyas, down to Madhva Chaitanya, and the Goswamis all belong to the same line of disciplinic succession. Naradji has instructed many kings from time immemorial. In the Bhagavatam, we can see that he instructed Prahlad Maharaj while he was in the womb of his mother, and he instructed Vasudeva, father of Krishna, as well as Maharaj Yudhishthira. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sri Ganesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dhaumya, a great Sikh who practices severe penance at Utkochaka Tirtha and was appointed royal priest of the Pandavas kings. He acted as a priest in many religious functions of the Pandavas, samskaras, and also each of the Pandavas was attained by him at a betrothal of Draupadi. He was present even during the exile of Pandavas and used to advise them in circumstances where they were perplexed. He instructed them how to live incognito for 1 year, and his instructions were strictly followed by the Pandavas during that time. His name is mentioned also when the general funeral ceremony was performed after the Battle of Kurukshetra. In the Anusansana Parva of Mahabharata, he gave very elaborate religious instructions to Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was actually the right type of priest of householder, for he could guide the Pandavas on the right path of the religion. A priest is meant for guiding the householder progressively in the right path of ashrama dharma or the occupation duty of a particular caste. There is practically no difference between family priests and spiritual masters. The sages, saints, and brahmanas were especially meant for such functions.
Very good.
Badarina
Hare
Vyasadeva.
Krishna Prabhuji. We'll continue with that. Okay?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sarasija Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Just a second. Yeah. Badarayan. Badarayana, Vyasadeva, he is known as Krishna, Krishna Dvaipayana, Dvaipayana, Satyavati Sutta, Parasarya, Parasharatmaja, Badarayana, Veda Vyasa, etc. He was the son of Mahamuni Parasara in the womb of Satyavati prior to her betrothal with Maharaja Shantanu, the father of the great general grandfather Bhishma Deva. He is a powerful incarnation of Narayana and he broadcasts the Vedic wisdom to the world. As such, Vyasadeva is offered respects before one chants the Vedic literature, especially the Puranas. Sukadeva Goswami was his son and rishis like Vaishampayana were his disciples for different branches of the Vedas. He is the author of the great epic Mahabharata and all the great transcendental literature Bhagavatam. The Brahma Sutras, the Vedanta Sutras or Badarayana Sutras were compiled by him. Among sages, he is the most respected author by dint of severe penances. When he wanted to record the great epic Mahabharata for the welfare of all people in the age of Kali, he was feeling the necessity of a powerful writer who could take up his dictation. By the order of Brahmaji, Sri Ganeshaji took up the charge of noting down the dictation on the condition that Vyasadeva would not stop dictation for a moment. The Mahabharata was thus compiled by the joint endeavor of Vyasa and Ganesha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Saban Prabhu. Can read the
Hare
highlight.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It is Saban Prabhu. I will call.
Sapan Prabhu.
Badrayana Vyasadeva, he's
By the order of his mother.
by the order of his mother Satyavati, who was later married to Maharaja Santanu, and by the request of Bhishma Deva, the eldest son of Maharaja Shantanu, by his first wife, the Ganges, he begot 3 brilliant sons whose names are Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and Vidura. The Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasadeva after the battle of Kurukshetra and after the death of all heroes of Mahabharata. It was first spoken in the royal assembly of Maharaja Janamejaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit. Brihadvasa, an ancient sage who used to meet Maharaj Yudhishthira now and then. First of all, he met Maharaja Yudhishthira at Kamyavana. The sage narrated the history of Maharaja Nala. There is another Brihadvasa, who is also the son of Ikshvaku dynasty. Mahabharata, Vanaparva, 209-4-5. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Sagar Prabhu. You can read the highlighted text.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Bharadwaja. He is one of the 7 great rishis and was present at the time of the birth ceremony of Arjuna. The powerful rishi sometimes undertook severe penance on the shore of Ganges, and his ashrama is still celebrated at
Prayagadam.
Prayagadham. It is learned that this rishi, while taking bath in the Ganges, happened to meet Grithashi, one of the beautiful society girls of heaven, and thus he discharged semen, which was kept and preserved in an earthen pot, and from which Drona was born. So Dronacharya is the son of Bharadwaja Muni. Others say that Bharadwaj, the father of Drona, he is a different person from Maharshi Bharadwaja. He is a great devotee of Brahma. Once he approached Dronacharya and requested him to stop the battle of Kurukshetra.
Hare Krishna, Vanilla Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Parashurama or Renuka Sutta. He is the son of Maharshi Jamadagni and Srimati Renuka. Thus, he is also known as Renuka Sutta. He is one of the most powerful incarnations of God, and he killed the Kshatriya community as a whole 21 times. With the blood of the Kshatriyas, he pleased the souls of his forefathers. Later on, he underwent severe penances at the Mahendra Parvata. After taking the whole world, whole earth from Kshatriyas, he gave it in charity to Kashyapa Muni. Parashurama instructed the Dhanurveda or the science of fighting to Dronacharya because he happened to be a Brahmana. He was present during the coronation of Maharaj Yudhishthira and he celebrated the function along with other great rishis. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Yogesh Prabhu. Sanjay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Parshurama is so old that he met both Rama and Krishna at different times. He fought with Rama, but he accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also praised Arjuna when he saw him with Krishna. When Bhishma refused to marry Amba, who wanted him to become her husband, Amba met Parshurama, and by her request only, he asked Bhishma Deva to accept her as his wife. Bhishma refused to obey his order, although he was one of the spiritual masters of Bhishma Deva. Parshurama fought with Bhishma Deva when Bhishma neglected his warning. Both of them fought very severely, and at last Parshurama was pleased with Bhishma and gave him the benediction of becoming the greatest fighter in the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Yogesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Vasishta, the great celebrated sage among the Brahmanas, well known as the Brahma Rishi Vasishta Dev. He is a prominent figure in both the Ramayana and Mahabharata period. He celebrated the coronation ceremony of the personality of Godhead Sri Ram. He was present also on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He could approach all the higher and the lower planets, and his name is also connected with the history of Hiranyakashipu. There was a great tension between him and Vishwamitra, who wanted his Kamadhenu, wish-fulfilling cow. Vasishta Muni refused to spare his Kamadhenu, and for his Vishwamitra killed his 100 sons. As a perfect Brahmana, he tolerated all the taunts of Vishwamitra. Once he tried to commit suicide on account of Vishwamitra's torture, but all his attempts were unsuccessful. He jumped from a hill, but the stones on which he fell became a stack of cotton, and thus he was saved. He jumped into the ocean, but the waves washed him ashore. He jumped into the river, but the river also washed him ashore. Thus all his suicide attempts were unsuccessful. He is also one of the 7 rishis and husband of Arundhati, the famous star.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sri Ganesh Prabhu. Can read the highlighted text.
Indramati, another celebrated rishi. Indra Pramada, another celebrated rishi. Sita, one of 3 sons of Prajapati Gautama. He was a 3rd son, and his other 2 brothers were also known as Ekat and Dvita. All the brothers were great sages, strictly followers of the principles of religion. By dint of severe penance, they were promoted to Brahmaloka. Once Trita Muni fell into a river, he was an organizing worker of many sacrifices, and one of the great sages. He also came to show respect to Bhishmaji at his deathbed. He was one of the 7 sages in the Varuna Loka. He hailed from the western countries of the world. As such, most probably he belonged to the European countries. At that time, the whole world was under one Vedic culture.
Hare Krishna, Sarasija Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Gritsamada, one of the sages of the heavenly kingdom. He was a close friend of Indra, the king of heaven, and was as great as Brihaspati. He used to visit the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthira, and he also visited the place where Bhishma Deva breathed his last. Sometimes he explained the glories of Lord Shiva before Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was the son of Vitahavya, and he resembled in features the body of Indra. Sometimes the enemies of Indra mistook him to be Indra and arrested him. He was a great scholar of the Rig Veda, and thus he was highly respected by the Brahmana community. He lived a life of celibacy and was powerful in every respect. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Swapan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Asita. There was a great king of the same name, but herein the Asita mentioned is the Asita Devala Rishi, a great powerful sage of the time. He explained to his father 1.5 million verses from the Mahabharata. He was one of the members in the snake sacrifice of Maharaja Janamejaya. He was also present during the coronation ceremony of Maharaj Yudhishthira along with other great rishis. He also gave Maharaj Yudhishthira instructions while he was on the Anjana hill. He was also one of the devotees of Lord Shiva. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Swapna Mataji. You can read the highlighted text.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, sorry I'm late.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, you can read.
Kakshapa, one of the sons of Gautama Muni and the father of the great sage Chandakaushika, he was one of the members of parliament of Maharaja Yudhishthira. Atri Muni was great Brahmana sage and was one of the mental sons of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is so powerful that simply by thinking of a son, he can have it. These sons are known as Manasaputras. Out of 7 Manasaputras of Brahmaji and out of 7 great Brahmana sages, Atri was one. In his family, the great Prasitas was also born. Atri Muni had 2 Kshatriya sons who became kings. King Arthama is one of them. He is counted as one of the 21 Prajapatis. His wife name was Anasuya, and he helped Maharaja Parikshit in his great sacrifices. Kaushika, one of the permanent Rishi members in the royal assembly of Maharaja Yudhishthira. He sometimes met Lord Krishna. There are several other sages of the same name.
Great.
Sudarshan.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Sagar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Sudarsana. This wheel, which accepted by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon, greater than the Brahmastra or similar other disastrous weapons. In some of the Vedic literatures, it is said that Agnideva, the fire god, presented this weapon to Lord Krishna. But actually, this weapon is eternally carried by the Lord. Agnideva presented this weapon to Krishna in the same way that Rukmini was given by Maharaj Rukma to the Lord. The Lord accepts such presentations from his devotees, even though such presentations are eternally his property. There is an elaborate description of this weapon in the Adi Parva of the Mahabharata. Lord Sri Krishna used this weapon to kill Sishpala, a rival of the god. He also killed Salva by this weapon. And sometimes he wanted his friend Arjuna to use it to kill his enemies. Mahabharata, Virata Parva, 56.3. Right.
8. अन्ये च मुनयो ब्रह्मन् ब्रह्मार्धातयो मलः शिष्येर उपेत अजग्मु कश्यपान्न गृहसाध्या. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Sanjay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. And many others like Sukdeva, Goswami, and other purified souls, Kashyapa and Angi Rasa, and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there. Purport. Sukdeva Goswami, Brahmarata, the famous son and disciple of Sri Vyasadeva, who fought him first the Mahabharata and then Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukdeva Goswami recited 1.4 million verses of the Mahabharata in the councils of the Gandharva, Yakshas and Rakshasas, and he recited Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time in the presence of Maharaja Parikshit. He thoroughly studied all the Vedic literatures from his great father. Thus he was a completely purified soul by dint of his extensive knowledge in the principles of religion. From Mahabharata, Sabha Parva 4.11, it is understood that he was also present in the royal assembly of Maharaja Yudhishthira and at the fasting of Maharaja Parikshit. As a bona fide disciple of Sri Vyasadeva, he inquired from his father very extensively about religious principles and spiritual values. And his great father also satisfied him by teaching him the yoga system by which one can attain the spiritual kingdom, the difference between fruitive work and the empiric knowledge, the ways and means of attaining spiritual realization, the four ashramas, namely the student life, the householder's life, the retired life, and the renounced life, the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the process of seeing Him eye to eye, the bona fide candidate for receiving knowledge, the consideration of the five elements, the unique position of intelligence, the consciousness of the material nature and the living entity, the symptoms of the self-realized soul, the working principles of the material body, the symptoms of the influential modes of nature, the tree of perpetual desire, the psych activities. Sometimes he went to the sun planet with the permission of his father and Naradji. Descriptions of his travel in space are given in Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata 332. At last, he attained the transcendental realm. He is known by different names like Aranya, Arunisuta, Vayasiki, and Vesat Maja.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Yogesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, Kashyapa, one of the Prajapatis, the son of Marichi, and one of the son-in-laws of Prajapati Daksha. He is the father of the gigantic bird Garuda, who was given elephants and tortoise as eatables. He married 13 daughters of Prajapati Daksha, and their names are Aditi, Diti, Danu, Kastha, Arista, Surasa, Ila, Muni, Krodvasa, Tamra, Surabhi, Sarama, and Timi. He begot many children, both demigods and demons, by those wives. From his first wife Aditi, all the 12 Adityas were born. One of them is Vamana, the incarnation of Godhead. This great sage Kashyapa was also present at the time of Arjuna's birth. He received a presentation of the whole world from the Parshurama, and later on he asked Parshurama to go out of the world. His other name is Arishtanemi. He lives on the northern side of the universe. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sri Ganesh Prabhu.
Angirasa. He is the son of Maharshi Angira and known as Brihaspati, the priest of the demigods. It is said that the Dronacharya was his partial incarnation. Sukracharya was the spiritual master of demons, and Brihaspati challenged him. His son is Kacha, and he delivered the fire weapon first to Bharadwaja Muni. He begot 6 sons like the fire god by his wife Chandramasi, one of the reputed stars. He could travel in space and therefore he could present himself even in the planets of Brahmaloka and Indraloka. He advised the king of heaven, Indra, about conquering the demons. Once he cursed Indra, who thus had to become a hawk on the earth and was unwilling to return to the heaven. Such is the power of the attraction of the illusory energy. Even a hawk does not wish to be part with its earthly possessions in exchange for a heavenly kingdom. He was the religious preceptor of the natives of different planets. Hare Krishna.
9.9 Tan sametan mahabhagan upalabhya vasuttamah pujayam asadramogno Deshakala Vipagavir. Translation purport by Divine Grace J.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Satya Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Bhishma Deva, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. Purport. Expert religion is known perfectly well how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place. All the great acharyas or religious preachers or reformers of the world executed their mission by adjustment of religious principles in terms of time and place. There are different climates and situations in different parts of the world, and if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of the time and place. Bhishma Deva was one of the 12 great authorities in preaching this cult of devotional service, and therefore he could receive and welcome all the powerful sages assembled there at his deathbed from all parts of the universe. He was certainly unable at that time to welcome and receive them physically because he was neither at his home nor in a normal healthy condition. But he was quite fit by the activities of his sound mind, and therefore he could utter sweet words with hearty expressions, and all of them were well received. One can perform one's duty by physical work, by mind, and by words. And he knew well how to utilize them in the proper place, and therefore there was no difficulty for him to receive them, although physically unfit. Hare Krishna.
Krishnam cha tat prabhavagna asinam jagat ishwaram rudistam pujyam asa maya yopata vigraham. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Sapan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Translation. Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. Yes, he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishma Deva, and since Bhishma Deva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. Purport. The Lord's omnipotency is displayed by all his simultaneous presence in every place. He is present everywhere in his eternal abode Goloka Vrindavana, and still he is present in everyone's heart and even within every invisible atom. When he manifests his eternal transcendental form in the material world, he does so by his internal potency. The external potency or material energy has nothing to do with eternal form. All these truths were known to Sri Bhishma Deva, who worshipped him accordingly. Hare Krishna.
7. Panduputran upasinan prashraya prema sangatan avyachasatnugrasher adibhutena chakshusha. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Swapna Mataji.
The sons of Maharaja Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishma Deva congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by the love and affection. Purport. When Maharaja Pandu died, his sons were all small children, and naturally they were brought up under the affection of elderly members of the royal family, specifically by Bhishma Deva. Later on, when the Pandavas were grown up, they were cheated by cunning Duryodhana and company. And Bhishma Deva, although he knew that the Pandavas were innocent and were unnecessarily put into trouble, could not take the side of Pandavas for political reasons. At the last stage of his life, when Bhishma Deva saw his most exalted grandsons, headed by Maharaja Yudhishthira, sitting very gently at his side, the great warrior grandfather could not check his loving tears, which were automatically flowing from his eyes. He remembered the great tribulations suffered by his most pious grandsons. Certainly, he was the most satisfied man because of Yudhishthira's being enthroned in place of Duryodhana, and thus he began to congratulate them. Hare Krishna.
Well, aho kastam aho anyayam yadyuyam dharma nandana jeevitam narhata klishtam vipra dharma chuta shriya. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Sagar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Bhishma Deva said, "Oh, what terrible suffering and what terrible injustice your good soul suffers for being the sons of religious personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, the God, and religion. Purport. Maharaj Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishma Deva could understand this, and therefore he spoke his first of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by Brahmanas, the Lord, and the religious principles. As long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Vishnu encouraged Maharaj Yudhishthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency. However, trying the circumstances of life, Bhishma Deva, as one of the authorities in the line, wanted to impress this point upon Pandavas.
13. संस्थिते अतीर्थे पाण्डौ वृतबालप्रजावधू युष्मत्कृते बहून् क्लेशान् प्राप्त तोकवति मुहुः. Translation purport by Divine Grace Bhaktivinoda Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Sanjay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Translation. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. Purport. The sufferings of Kunti Devi are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of early widowhood and to get her minor children brought up in the royal family. And when her children were grown up, she continued to suffer because of her son's actions. So her sufferings continued. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence, and this one has to tolerate without being disturbed. Hare Krishna.
14. सर्वकालकृतं मन्ये भवतां च यत् अप्रियं सफलो यद्वशे लोको वायुरिव घनावली. Translation purport by Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Sri Ganesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. Purport. There is control by time all over the space within the universe, as there is control by time all over the planets. All the big, gigantic planets, including the sun, are being controlled by the force of air, as the clouds are carried away by the force of air. Similarly, the inevitable Kala or time controls even the actions of the air and other elements. Everything, therefore, is controlled by the Supreme Kala, a powerful representative of the Lord within the material world. Thus, Yudhishthira should not be sorry for the inconceivable action of time. Everyone has to bear the actions and reactions of time as long as one is within the conditions of the material world. Yudhishthira should not think that he had committed sins in his previous birth and is suffering the consequence. Even the most pious has to suffer the conditions of material nature. But a pious man is faithful in the Lord, for he is guided by the bona fide Brahmana and Vaishnava following the religious principle. These three guiding principles should be aim of life. One should not be disturbed by the tricks of eternal time. Even the great controller of the universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of time. Therefore, one should not grudge being thus controlled by time, despite being a true follower of religious principle. Hare Krishna.
These are the wonderful instructions of Bhishma there. So earlier we have seen the Kunti Devi's prayers, and now we are seeing what Bhishma Devi is saying. So even the most pious person or devotee has to undergo sufferings. So Pandavas, Kunti, and everyone, they are undergoing the sufferings. But the difference is that they are all surrendered to the Supreme Lord. That's why they are protected by the Brahmanas, time, and the Krishna. So right from the Brahma to everyone has to suffer. But we all have to take the shelter of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. We should not complain and accept it as it is. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to read Bhagavatam with all of you. Thank you, Ganesh Prabhu, Apan Prabhu, Sanjay Prabhu, Rasiya Mataji, Sagar Prabhu, Yogesh Prabhu, and Swapna Mataji. Thank you so much. We'll meet next again on next Tuesday at the same time. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यः कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ट्रांसेंडेंटल श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय।